Sarah Williams pushed her shopping cart through the automatic doors of Miller's grocery store, feeling happy about the day ahead. The sun was shining bright, and she had finally found time to buy everything she needed for her daughter Maya's 8th birthday party. Her husband Marcus had been away for 3 months on a secret military mission, and Sarah wanted to make this birthday extra special for their little girl. She looked at her shopping list one more time. Birthday cake mix, vanilla frosting, pink, candles, balloons, and all of Maya's favorite foods. Sarah worked long hours as a nurse at City General Hospital, but she always made time for the important things. Everyone in their neighborhood knew Sarah as the kind woman who helped sick neighbors and organized food drives for poor families. Inside the store, Sarah walked slowly through each aisle. She picked up chocolate cake mix because Maya loved chocolate more than anything. Then she found the pink and purple balloons that would make the living room look like a princess castle. At the meat counter, she ordered Maya's favorite chicken nuggets from Tom, the butcher who had known their family for 5 years. "Tell Maya happy birthday from me," Tom said with a big smile as he wrapped the chicken. "That little girl is growing, up so fast." Sarah smiled back. "She is. I can't believe she's already 8 years old. It feels like yesterday when she was learning to walk." Sarah spent almost an hour shopping, taking her time to find everything perfect. She talked to Mrs. Chen from the flower department about which flowers would look best on the birthday table. She asked the bakery lady about the best way to decorate a homemade cake. Everyone in the store knew Sarah, and everyone liked her friendly personality. At the checkout line, Sarah talked with Linda, the cashier who always worked the afternoon shift. Linda had 3 kids of her own and understood how hard it was to plan birthday parties when your husband was away. "You're such a good mom, Sarah," Linda said as she scanned the birthday items. "Maya is lucky to have you." "Thank you, Linda. I just want her to feel loved while her daddy is overseas. Military families have to stick together, you know?" Sarah paid with her credit card at exactly 2:47 p.m. She kept the receipt in her purse like she always did for her monthly budget. The total was $89.43 for all the birthday supplies and groceries for the week. She helped Linda put everything in paper bags, making sure the eggs and bread wouldn't get crushed. Outside in the parking lot, Sarah found her silver Honda Civic parked under a shady tree. She had parked there because the Texas sun was very hot, and she didn't want her groceries to spoil. She opened the trunk and started putting the bags inside, organizing them so the cold items would stay cold on the drive home. As she arranged the last bag, Sarah heard sirens getting louder and louder. She looked up and saw 2 police cars racing into the parking lot with their red and blue lights flashing. The cars moved very fast like they were chasing someone dangerous. Sarah thought maybe there was an accident somewhere nearby. She continued organizing her groceries, humming a happy song as she thought about Maya's excited face when she saw all the birthday decorations. But then both police cars turned directly toward her. The sirens were so loud now that other people in the parking lot stopped what they were doing and looked around. Sarah's heart started beating faster as she realized the police cars were coming straight at her. The cars stopped just a few feet away from her Honda. 4 police officers jumped out quickly, and Sarah could see they had their hands on their guns. She was confused and scared, but she thought maybe they needed help with something. "Excuse me, officers," Sarah said politely. "Is there something wrong? Do you need help?" "Get on the ground now," the first officer shouted. He was a big man with an angry face, and his voice was so loud that Sarah jumped backward. "I'm sorry, what did I do?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "I was just putting my groceries in my car." "Get down on the ground right now," another officer yelled, pulling out his gun and pointing it at Sarah. Sarah had never had a gun pointed at her before. She felt like she couldn't breathe properly. Her hands started shaking, and she dropped her car keys on the ground. Other people in the parking lot were stopping their cars and getting out to see what was happening. "Please, officers, I think there's been a mistake," Sarah said, trying to stay calm. "I'm a nurse at City General Hospital. I was just shopping for my daughter's birthday party." But the officers weren't listening to her words. The big officer grabbed Sarah's arm and pushed her toward the ground. Sarah fell onto her knees on the hot parking lot pavement. The rough surface scraped her skin and she could feel the heat burning through her pants. "Put your hands behind your back," the officer commanded. Sarah was crying now, but she did what he said. She had never been in trouble with the police before. She had never even gotten a speeding ticket. She didn't understand why this was happening to her. The officer put handcuffs on Sarah's wrists. The metal was cold and tight, cutting into her skin. He pushed her face down onto the ground, and Sarah could taste the dirt and feel the hot pavement, burning her cheek. All around her, people were taking out their phones and recording what was happening. Sarah felt embarrassed and scared. She could hear people talking and asking each other what was going on. Some people were saying it was wrong to treat a lady like that. Others were saying she must have done something bad. "You're under arrest for armed robbery," the officer said as he pulled Sarah to her feet. Armed robbery? Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Officer, there's been a terrible mistake. I've been shopping here for over an hour. I have receipts. I have witnesses. Linda the cashier knows me. Tom the butcher knows me. I've never robbed anyone in my life." But the officers weren't interested in hearing her explanation. They put Sarah in the back of the police car, and she watched through the window as her groceries scattered across the parking lot. The milk cartons broke open and spilled everywhere. The birthday balloons flew away in the wind. As the police car drove away, Sarah thought about Maya coming home from school in 2 hours. Their neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, was supposed to watch Maya until Sarah got home from shopping, but now Sarah wouldn't be there. Maya would be scared and confused, wondering where her mommy was on the day before her birthday. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to stay strong. She kept telling herself that this was all a big mistake, and everything would be fixed soon. The police would realize they had arrested the wrong person, and she would be home in time to make Maya's birthday cake. But as the police station came into view, Sarah had a terrible feeling that this was just the beginning of the worst day of her life. The police car pulled into the station parking lot at 3:15 p.m. Sarah sat in the back seat with her hands still locked in handcuffs behind her back. The metal had cut into her wrists, leaving red marks on her brown skin. She could see people walking in and out of the police station, living their normal lives while her world was falling apart. Officer Martinez, the big man who had arrested her, opened the car door and pulled Sarah out roughly. She almost fell because her hands were still cuffed behind her back and she couldn't balance properly. "Please, officer," Sarah said as they walked toward the building. "Can you just call the grocery store? Linda the cashier will tell you I was there the whole time. She knows me. Everyone there knows me." Officer Martinez didn't answer. He just kept walking, holding Sarah's arm so tight it hurt. Inside the police station, Sarah could smell old coffee and cleaning chemicals. The fluorescent lights were too bright and gave her an instant headache. At the front desk, a tired-looking woman with gray hair typed Sarah's information into a computer. She asked Sarah questions like her full name, address, and phone number. Sarah answered everything truthfully, hoping someone would realize this was all a big mistake. "Sarah Williams, age 34, nurse at City General Hospital," the desk lady read out loud. "No prior arrests, no criminal record." Sarah felt a tiny bit of hope. Maybe they would see that she was a good person who had never been in trouble before. Maybe they would understand that someone like her wouldn't rob a bank. But Officer Martinez just shrugged. "First time for everything," he said. They took Sarah to a small room where they made her take off her jewelry and put it in a plastic bag. Her wedding ring, the simple gold band that Marcus had given her 7 years ago, went into the bag with her earrings and watch. Then they took her purse with all her receipts from the grocery store. "I need to make a phone call," Sarah said. "I have the right to make a phone call, don't I?" "You'll get your phone call when we're ready," Officer Martinez said. "Right now we're busy with paperwork." They put Sarah in a holding cell with gray concrete walls and a metal bench. The cell was cold, even though it was hot outside. There was a small window near the ceiling, but Sarah couldn't see much through it except a little bit of sky. Sarah sat on the hard metal bench and tried to think clearly. She looked at the clock on the wall outside her cell. It was 4 p.m. Maya's school ended at 3:30, and Mrs. Rodriguez would be expecting Sarah to pick up Maya by 4:30. But Sarah wasn't going to be there. She thought about Maya waiting and waiting, wondering where her mommy was. Tomorrow was Maya's birthday, And Sarah was supposed to stay up late tonight decorating the house and making the chocolate cake. Maya had been talking about her birthday party for weeks. An hour passed, then 2 hours. Sarah asked every police officer who walked by when she could make her phone call. Some ignored her completely. Others said soon or we're working on it. But nobody actually let her use the phone. At 6:00 p.m., Sarah heard a familiar voice echoing through the police station. It was Mrs. Rodriguez, Maya's babysitter, talking to someone at the front desk. "I'm looking for Sarah Williams," Mrs. Rodriguez was saying. "She was supposed to pick up her daughter 2 hours ago. The little girl is crying and asking for her." "Mama!" Sarah jumped up and ran to the bars of her cell. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm here. Tell Maya I'm okay." But Mrs. Rodriguez couldn't hear her from where she was standing. Sarah could hear the conversation getting louder as Mrs. Rodriguez got more worried. "Listen, lady," the desk officer was saying. "Mrs. Williams is helping us with an investigation. She'll be home when she's done." "What kind of investigation?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked. "Sarah is a good woman. She takes care of sick people at the hospital. She wouldn't hurt a fly." "That's not for me to discuss," the officer said. "Just take care of the kid until we're finished here." Sarah felt her heart breaking as she listened to Mrs. Rodriguez leave. She knew Maya would be scared and confused. Maya had never spent a night away from her mother except when she was visiting her grandparents. Finally, at 7:30 p.m., Detective Johnson came to talk to Sarah. He was a thin man with a mustache who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He brought a folder full of papers and photos to a small interview room. "Mrs. Williams," Detective Johnson said, sitting across from Sarah at a metal table. "Let's talk about what happened today at First National Bank." "I've never been to First National Bank," Sarah said immediately. "I bank at Community Credit Union on Oak Street. I can show you my bank card." Detective Johnson opened his folder and spread out several photos on the table. They showed pictures from security cameras at the bank. Sarah could see a black woman, about her height, wearing dark clothes and sunglasses. The woman was pointing what looked like a gun at a bank teller. "This looks like you," Detective Johnson said, pointing at the photos. Sarah looked carefully at the pictures. "Detective, that woman has short hair. My hair is long. She has tattoos on both arms. I don't have any tattoos. She's wearing expensive jewelry. I only wear my wedding ring." "People can change their appearance," Detective Johnson said. "They can wear wigs, cover tattoos with makeup." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But I was at Miller's grocery store when this happened. I have receipts. I talked to people who know me. The store has security cameras too." Detective Johnson leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Williams, we have 3 witnesses who saw you leaving the bank. We have your car on security cameras in the area." "My car?" Sarah was confused. "What time did this robbery happen?" 10:30 p.m. Sarah felt relief wash over her. "Detective, I was inside Miller's grocery store at 2:30. I didn't pay for my groceries. Until 2:47, I have the receipt right here in my purse." Detective Johnson looked at the receipt Sarah had given him, but he didn't seem impressed. "Receipts can be faked. People can work together on robberies." "Are you saying I had an accomplice?" Sarah asked. "Detective, I'm a nurse. I work with sick children. I volunteer at the community center, call my supervisor at the hospital, call my neighbors, call anyone who knows me." But Detective Johnson seemed more interested in closing his case than finding the truth. He leaned forward and looked Sarah directly in the eyes. "Mrs. Williams, if you confess now, the judge might go easy on you. First-time offenders sometimes get probation instead of prison time. But if you make us go to trial and we prove you're guilty anyway, you could get 20 years. Sarah felt dizzy. 20 years? Maya would be grown up by then. She would miss her daughter's entire childhood because of something she didn't do. "I can't confess to something I didn't do," Sarah said firmly. "I'm innocent. I was shopping for my daughter's birthday party." Detective Johnson gathered up his photos and papers. "Think about it, Mrs. Williams. Think about your daughter. Do you really want to risk 20 years in prison?" As he left the room, Sarah put her head in her hands and cried. Outside, the sun was setting, and Maya was probably having dinner with Mrs. Rodriguez, still wondering why her mommy hadn't come home. Sarah spent the longest night of her life lying on a thin mattress in the county jail. The mattress smelled like old disinfectant and was harder than sleeping on the floor. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see Maya's face wondering where her mommy was. The jail was never quiet. Women cried, guards walked up and down the halls with heavy boots, and metal doors slammed shut all night long. At 6 a.m., a guard brought Sarah a breakfast tray with cold eggs, burnt toast, and coffee that tasted like dirty water. Sarah couldn't eat anything. Her stomach felt sick with worry about Maya. Today was supposed to be Maya's 8th birthday, the day Sarah had been planning for weeks. "Williams," the guard called out at 8:30 a.m. "You have a visitor." Sarah thought maybe Mrs. Rodriguez had come to tell her that Maya was okay, or maybe someone from the hospital had come to help her. But when she got to the visiting room, she saw a tired-looking man in a cheap suit sitting behind the glass window. "Mrs. Williams, I'm David Chen, your court-appointed lawyer," the man said through the phone. He had papers scattered all over the table and looked like he hadn't slept much, either. "Thank God," Sarah said. "Mr. Chen, there's been a terrible mistake. I was nowhere near that bank when it was robbed. I have receipts, witnesses, security cameras that will prove I'm innocent." Mr. Chen barely looked up from his papers. "Mrs. Williams, I've read your file. The evidence against you is pretty strong. They have witnesses, they have your car in the area, and you match the description." "But I have evidence too," Sarah said, feeling desperate. "I was shopping at Miller's grocery store. I talked to people who know me. The store has security cameras that will show I was there when the robbery happened." Mr. Chen finally looked at her, but his expression wasn't hopeful. "Mrs. Williams, I handle about 50 cases like yours every month. The district attorney has a 90% conviction rate. Even if you have some evidence, juries tend to believe the police." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Are you saying I should just give up?" "I'm saying you should consider taking a plea deal," Mr. Chen said. "If you plead guilty to simple robbery instead of armed robbery, you might only get 5 years instead of 20. 5 years? Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. "My daughter would be 13 when I got out. I would miss her entire childhood for something I didn't do." Mr. Chen shrugged. "Mrs. Williams, the system doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes innocent people get caught up in things. But fighting this in court is risky. If you lose, you could get the full 20 years. Sarah stared at this man who was supposed to help her. "Mr. Chen, I'm a nurse. I save people's lives. I volunteer at the community center. I've never even had a speeding ticket. Don't you think that should count for something?" "The judge will consider your character during sentencing," Mr. Chen said. "But right now we need to focus on the charges. I'll come back tomorrow and we can discuss your options." After Mr. Chen left, Sarah felt more hopeless than ever. Even her own lawyer didn't seem to believe she was innocent. She sat in the visiting room for a few more minutes, watching other families talk to their loved ones through the glass. Everyone looked sad and worried. Back in her cell, Sarah could hear the other women talking about their cases. Some had been waiting months for their trials. Others had been in jail for over a year. A woman named Rosa in the next cell told Sarah that she had been arrested for stealing a car that her ex-boyfriend had actually stolen. "How long have you been here?" Sarah asked Rosa. 8 months, Rosa said. "My lawyer keeps saying we'll go to trial soon, but it never happens. My kids are living with my sister now. They barely remember me." Sarah felt tears running down her face. Was this going to happen to her too? Would Maya forget what her mommy looked like? At 10 a.m., a guard brought Sarah to another room where Detective Johnson was waiting with more papers. "Mrs. Williams," Detective Johnson said, "the district attorney has decided to formally charge you with armed robbery in the first degree. You'll go before the judge this afternoon." "Detective, please," Sarah begged. "Just check the grocery store cameras. Call the people who saw me there. It will only take one phone call to prove I'm innocent." Detective Johnson looked annoyed. "Mrs. Williams, we've already done our investigation. 3 witnesses picked you out of a photo lineup. Your car was seen in the area. You matched the description perfectly." "What witnesses?" Sarah asked. "I want to know who these people are who think they saw me. That information will come out at trial," Detective Johnson said. Right now, you need to decide if you want to make this easy or hard. Sarah realized that Detective Johnson didn't care about the truth. He just wanted to close his case and move on to the next one. It didn't matter to him that an innocent woman's life was being destroyed. At 2 p.m., Sarah was taken to the courthouse in handcuffs and an orange jail uniform. She saw newspaper reporters taking pictures and asking questions. One reporter shouted, "Mrs. Williams, why did you rob the bank?" Sarah wanted to scream that she was innocent, but the guards kept walking her toward the courthouse. Inside, she saw Maya sitting in the front row with Mrs. Rodriguez. Maya was wearing her favorite purple dress, the one she had planned to wear for her birthday party. "Mommy," Maya called out, but the guards wouldn't let Sarah go to her daughter. Judge Harrison was an older man with gray hair who looked tired and bored. He read the charges against Sarah in a voice that showed he had done this thousands of times before. "Sarah Williams, you are charged with armed robbery in the first degree. How do you plead?" Sarah stood up as straight as she could. "Not guilty, Your Honor. I am completely innocent." The judge set Sarah's bail at $100,000. Sarah's heart sank. She didn't have that kind of money. Marcus made good money in the military, but they had used their savings to buy their house and pay for Maya's school activities. "Your Honor," Mr. Chen said, "my client is a nurse with no criminal record. She has strong ties to the community." "Bail is set at $100,000, Judge Harrison repeated. Next case. As they led Sarah back to jail, she could hear Maya crying. Mrs. Rodriguez was trying to comfort her, but Maya kept reaching toward her mother. That evening, Sarah called Mrs. Rodriguez from the jail phone. Maya was too upset to talk, but Sarah could hear her crying in the background. "Tell Maya that Mommy loves her," Sarah said. "Tell her this is all a mistake and I'll be home soon." But as Sarah hung up the phone, she wondered if that was true. The system that was supposed to protect innocent people was failing her completely. And somewhere out there, the real bank robber was free, while Sarah sat in jail on her daughter's birthday. Colonel Marcus Williams was leading a briefing at a secret military base in Afghanistan when his communication officer knocked on the door. It was over 800 hours local time, and Marcus was explaining mission details to his Delta Force team when the interruption came. "Sir, you have an urgent Red Cross message," the young officer said quietly. Marcus had been in the military for 15 years, and he knew that Red Cross messages only came for family emergencies. His stomach dropped as he thought about Sarah and Maya back home in Texas. He excused himself from the briefing and walked quickly to the communication center. The message was short, but devastating. Wife arrested for armed robbery. Daughter in protective custody. Contact family immediately. Marcus read the message 3 times before the words made sense. Sarah arrested? His Sarah, who wouldn't hurt a fly. His Sarah, who volunteered at the hospital and helped elderly neighbors with their groceries. There had to be some kind of terrible mistake. Marcus immediately called his commanding officer, General Patterson, who had known Marcus since he was a young lieutenant. General Patterson had been to Marcus and Sarah's wedding and was Maya's honorary grandfather. "General, I need emergency leave," Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "My wife has been arrested for something she didn't do, and my daughter needs me." "Marcus, what the hell happened?" General Patterson asked. He had never heard Marcus sound so upset. Marcus explained what little he knew from the Red Cross message. General Patterson listened carefully. He had met Sarah many times at military events and knew she was one of the kindest women he had ever met. "Son, get your gear packed," General Patterson said. "I'm putting you on the next transport out of here. And Marcus, I'm making some phone calls. If someone is railroading your family, they picked the wrong soldier to mess with." Within 2 hours, Marcus was on a military cargo plane heading back to the United States. But he wasn't just sitting quietly during the long flight. Marcus had connections that most people could only dream about. He had saved the lives of politicians, generals, and intelligence officers during his years in special operations. Marcus called Senator Williams. No relation, but they had become friends after Marcus saved his son during a hostage situation in Iraq. He called FBI Director Hayes, whose daughter Marcus had rescued from terrorists in Syria. He called Judge Martinez from the Federal Appeals Court, whose life Marcus had saved during a bombing in Afghanistan. Marcus What do you need? Each of them asked when they heard his voice. Marcus explained the situation calmly and professionally. His wife, a respected nurse with no criminal record, had been arrested for a bank robbery she couldn't have committed. The local police had ignored obvious evidence of her innocence. His 8-year-old daughter was traumatized and staying with neighbors. I need this fixed, Marcus said simply. I need the right people to look at this case and find the truth. By the time Marcus's plane landed at Andrews Air Force Base, things were already happening. FBI agents were driving toward the small Texas town where Sarah sat in jail. Federal prosecutors were requesting all files related to Sarah's case. Someone at the Department of Justice was making very serious phone calls to the local district attorney. Marcus drove straight from the airport to the county jail, still wearing his desert combat uniform with colonel's insignia, and enough ribbons and medals to make people stop and stare. He walked into the police station at 1800 hours, his boots clicking on the floor with military precision. The desk sergeant looked up and immediately straightened in his chair. He had been in the Army Reserves and recognized the uniform of a Delta Force colonel when he saw one. "Sir, what can I do for you?" the sergeant asked respectfully. "I'm Colonel Marcus Williams," Marcus said in a calm but commanding voice. "I'm here about my wife, Sarah Williams, who was wrongfully arrested 3 days ago." The sergeant's eyes went wide. He had heard about the bank robbery case, but nobody had mentioned that the arrested woman was married to a Special Forces colonel. "Sir, let me get Detective Johnson for you right away." Detective Johnson came out a few minutes later looking nervous when he saw Marcus's uniform and rank. Marcus stood at attention, every inch the professional soldier, but everyone in the room could feel the controlled anger radiating from him. "Detective Johnson," Marcus said, "I understand you arrested my wife for armed robbery. I'd like to know why you ignored evidence that proves her innocence." Detective Johnson tried to act confident, but his voice shook slightly. "Colonel, we conducted a thorough investigation. We have witnesses and evidence." Marcus pulled out a folder he had prepared during his flight home. "Detective, I have here credit card records showing my wife's purchases at Miller's grocery store during the exact time of the robbery. I have phone records showing she called our daughter's school at 2:35 p.m., 5 minutes after the robbery occurred. I have witness statements from store employees who saw her shopping." "Sir, we looked at some of that evidence, but—" "You looked at some of it?" Marcus interrupted, his voice getting colder. "Detective, did you check the grocery store's security cameras?" Detective Johnson looked uncomfortable. "We didn't think it was necessary. We had other evidence." Marcus stepped closer to Detective Johnson. "You didn't think it was necessary to check cameras that would prove an innocent woman's whereabouts?" "Detective, I've spent 15 years fighting for this country. I've risked my life to protect the freedoms that you swore to uphold. And you couldn't be bothered to make one phone call to verify my wife's alibi?" Before Detective Johnson could answer, the police station's front door opened and 3 men in dark suits walked in. They showed their FBI badges to the desk sergeant and asked to speak with whoever was in charge of the Sarah Williams case. "That would be me," Detective Johnson said, looking even more nervous now. "Detective Johnson, I'm Agent Rodriguez from the FBI," the lead agent said. "We're here to review the Sarah Williams case. We'll need all your files, evidence, and witness statements immediately." Agent Rodriguez looked at Marcus and nodded respectfully. "Colonel Williams, we've been instructed to give this case our highest priority. We should have some answers very soon." Over the next 2 hours, Marcus watched as FBI agents systematically dismantled the case against his wife. They pulled security footage from every camera within a mile of both the bank and the grocery store. They interviewed witnesses who had seen Sarah shopping. They ran facial recognition software on the bank security footage. At 2100 hours, Agent Rodriguez found Marcus in the police station waiting room. "Colonel, we've found some very interesting information," Agent Rodriguez said. "The real bank robber hit another bank 2 states over yesterday. She's been robbing banks across the Southwest for months. We have her on multiple security cameras and she looks nothing like your wife except for being roughly the same height." Marcus felt relief and anger fighting inside him. Relief that Sarah would be freed, and anger that she had suffered for days because of lazy police work. "When can I see my wife?" Marcus asked. "Right now, sir. The charges are being dropped immediately." As they walked toward the jail cells, Marcus thought about Maya, who was staying with Mrs. Rodriguez and crying herself to sleep every night. He thought about Sarah, spending her daughter's birthday in jail for a crime she didn't commit. Someone was going to pay for what his family had endured. The metal door to Sarah's jail cell opened at 9:30 p.m., and she looked up expecting to see another guard with bad news. Instead, she saw Marcus standing there in his military uniform, looking like the strong soldier she had fallen in love with. 12 years ago. Marcus, Sarah whispered, not believing her eyes. How are you here? I thought you were overseas. Marcus stepped into the cell and wrapped his arms around his wife. Sarah collapsed against his chest, finally feeling safe for the first time in 4 days. She started crying so hard that her whole body shook. I'm here now, baby, Marcus said, softly, holding her tight. Everything's going to be okay. You're coming home. Sarah pulled back to look at her husband's face. Marcus, they think I robbed a bank. They won't listen to me. They have witnesses who say they saw me, but I was shopping for Maya's birthday cake. It's all been a nightmare. I know, Sarah. I know everything, Marcus said, wiping tears from her face. The FBI found the real bank robber. She's been arrested in Arizona. All the charges against you are being dropped right now. Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. Really? They found who really did it? Her name is Jennifer Martinez, Marcus explained. She's been robbing banks across 3 states for 6 months. The FBI tracked her down using facial recognition and credit card records. She confessed to everything, including the robbery you were blamed for. Agent Rodriguez appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Williams, you're free to go. All charges have been dropped, and we've notified the district attorney. You should receive an official apology from the court within 24 hours. As they walked out of the jail, Sarah held Marcus's hand tightly, afraid that if she let go, she might wake up and find this was all a dream. Outside in the parking lot, she took her first breath of free air in 4 days. Where's Maya? Sarah asked immediately. Is she okay? Today was supposed to be her birthday and I missed everything. She's with Mrs. Rodriguez, Marcus said. She's been crying every night asking when Mommy was coming home. Mrs. Rodriguez has been trying to keep her spirits up, but Maya knew something was very wrong. They drove to Mrs. Rodriguez's house and Marcus knocked gently on the door. When Mrs. Rodriguez opened it, her face lit up with relief. Sarah, thank God you're home, Mrs. Rodriguez said, giving Sarah a big hug. Maya, your mama's here. Maya came running from the living room in her pajamas. When she saw her mother, she stopped for a second as if she couldn't believe it was real. Then she ran straight into Sarah's arms. Mommy, I knew you would come back. I knew you didn't do anything bad, Maya cried, holding on to her mother like she would never let go. Sarah picked up her daughter and held her close, smelling her hair and feeling her small heartbeat. I'm so sorry I missed your birthday, baby. Mama's going to make it up to you, I promise. I don't care about my birthday, Maya said. I just wanted my mama to come home. The next morning, Sarah woke up in her own bed for the first time in 4 days. For a moment, she thought maybe the whole thing had been a terrible dream. But then she saw the newspaper on the kitchen table with her photo on the front page. The headline read, Innocent Woman Freed After False Arrest, Police Department. Under investigation, the article told the whole story. How Sarah had been shopping for her daughter's birthday party when she was wrongfully arrested. How Detective Johnson had ignored clear evidence of her innocence. How the FBI had found the real criminal within hours of taking over the case. Marcus was on the phone in his study and Sarah could hear him talking to someone important. Yes, sir. I want a full investigation, Marcus was saying. My family went through hell because of incompetent police work. This can't happen to other innocent people. By afternoon, things started happening very quickly. Police Chief Anderson came to their house personally to apologize to Sarah and Marcus. He looked embarrassed and nervous as he stood in their living room. Mrs. Williams, I want to apologize on behalf of the entire police department. Chief Anderson said, What happened to you was unacceptable. Detective Johnson has been suspended pending a full investigation. Chief Anderson, Sarah said calmly, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. How many other innocent people are sitting in jail right now because officers don't want to do proper investigations? Chief Anderson looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Williams, we're implementing new training programs for all our officers about conducting thorough investigations and avoiding racial bias. Later that day, District Attorney Phillips also came to apologize. He was a tall man who usually acted very confident on television, but today he looked worried and spoke carefully. Mrs. Williams, the state is prepared to offer you compensation for this terrible mistake, District Attorney Phillips said. We're also reviewing all cases that Detective Johnson has worked on in the past 2 years. The local newspaper wanted to interview Sarah, but she wasn't ready to talk to reporters. Yet, Marcus handled most of the media attention, explaining how the system had failed his family and demanding changes to protect other innocent people. 3 days later, Mayor Thompson held a press conference announcing major changes to the police department. Detective Johnson was fired from his job. Officer Martinez, who had arrested Sarah so roughly, was suspended for 2 weeks without pay. New policies required officers to check all available evidence before making arrests. The real bank robber Jennifer Martinez was sentenced to 15 years in prison for robbing 8 banks across 3 states. She looked nothing like Sarah except for being about the same height. Any real investigation would have cleared Sarah in minutes. Sarah returned to work at the hospital, where her co-workers welcomed her back with flowers and cards. Her supervisor apologized for suspending her and offered her extra vacation time to recover from the ordeal. But the best moment came on Saturday, when Sarah finally got to throw Maya's birthday party. They had chocolate cake, pink and purple balloons, and all of Maya's friends came over to play games. Maya wore her favorite purple dress and smiled bigger than Sarah had seen in weeks. "Mama, this is the best birthday party ever," Maya said as she blew out her candles. Marcus stood behind Sarah with his arms around her waist, watching their daughter laugh and play with her friends. He was scheduled to return overseas in 2 weeks, but for now his family was safe and together. That evening, after all the guests had gone home, Sarah sat on the porch with Marcus and Maya watching the sunset. Maya fell asleep in Sarah's lap, tired from all the birthday excitement. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked softly. Sarah thought about the question. She had spent 4 days in jail for a crime she didn't commit. She had missed her daughter's birthday and feared she might lose years of her life. But her family was together now, and changes were being made to help other innocent people. "I'm okay," Sarah said finally. "We're all okay, and maybe something good will come from all this pain." Marcus squeezed her hand. Sometimes the system failed good people, but sometimes good people could fight back and make the system better.